Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor Heath and the host of this podcast. I'm super pumped. You're here because we got a great episode lined up for you today with a good friend, and I'm excited you're going to be here to check this one out. I've known this guy for a little while now, and we discussed that a little bit. You know, he comes from the world of Pacesetters, which is one of the top training schools for producers in the country, and I'm a firm believer in that. Just can't wait for you to check out this episode. I'm going to quickly get through some of this because I want you to check this one out and stay to the end because this is a great episode, and we get into some really cool stuff towards the end. This show and episode is sponsored by my friends over at Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down. 10,000 agencies across the country trust and believe and put their faith in Smart Choice to help them with, growing their agency, getting the most out of their checks, getting the best payouts, getting the best from their agency. And Smart Choice is here for that. And over 11 billion in written premium. Go to smartchoiceagents.com, check it out. Also, my friends over at Canopy Connect, the one-click solution to getting those deck pages you need to quote your prospects and anything you need in that intake process, and to help you with your onboarding experience for your prospects and your clients. Phenomenal opportunity for you, for your agency. You got to check it out and use canopy.com is the website. But if you go /Heath, you get a discount. You can schedule a demo, the whole 9 yards. Check out the cheesy video recorded 4 or 5 years ago. We probably need to update that, Toga. But go check that out. Guys, I'm getting out of the way so you can check out this phenomenal conversation with my man, David Vercillo. David Vercillo, what's going on, brother?
Hey, man, how are you?
Man, I am really good. Sorry, this morning, just been one of those mornings. You got kids, so you get it. I've had to go back to the school a couple of times and take kids stuff that they've forgotten, and it's always something, man.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel like I get those calls all the time too. It's like, hey, I forgot my homework, or I left my paper on the printer, or hey, I have basketball today, but I left all my basketball stuff at
Yep.
the house. So yeah, we're in the thick of it for sure.
Oh man, they've gotten to know us really well at the front desk at our school. It's like, what did your kid forget this time? So it's either lunch, or it's pom poms, or it's my basketball shoes, or it's my soccer cleats, or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm ADHD to the core, so it's one of those things that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I hear
so
you.
wanted to bring you in just to visit with you a little bit, just because obviously we have a history going back, a few years back from the Pacesetter days and State Auto days and Liberty Mutual and the whole nine. And then, I see you made a jump in the last couple of months, and, wanted to hear about that a little bit and just really connect. So the audience is going to hear you and I just catch up a little bit, I guess. But before we get into some of that, if you want to take me and the audience down a walk down memory lane and kind of hit me with, your background a little bit and what brought you to A, Pacesetters, and then B, what brought you to this transition over the last couple of months?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. So, kind of got my start into insurance back in 2012. No one really says like, "Hey, I'm going to go sell insurance. I'm going to do
Yeah.
this," and kind of knew someone that kind of got me into this industry, and so started there on a smaller agency, and they focused mainly on personal lines, and then kind of made a transition into more of some commercial lines as well too. And as I was doing that, the agency owner had a good history with the Pacesetter program. So they said, hey, if
Mm-hmm.
you're really going to make this transition, you need to do this program. And had a great opportunity to be able to go through that program in January of 2015, and had great success with that. I worked with Diane Masterson, who's one of the co-founders of the program. And I know we have that same connection where Diane was your coach as well too. And, it was just something that I truly believed in. It changed my career. It was definitely a way that kind of put me ahead of the competition. I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything else like that, but they just approach things a little bit differently. And they truly just like put your nose to the grind. I'm a very competitive person. So for them to be able to kind of pull that out of me in a different way, it was something that I thought was really, really cool and a good opportunity to be a part of, and believe in the program so much that I ended up staying with their alumni program and continued to work with Diane for a couple more years after that. And then I kind of got an opportunity where I was still working with Diane, and they had someone that had left their management team, and we're looking for somebody to kind of overtake their personal lines and small commercial program. Then it was state auto. And that was kind of all lumped into one as a combined class. So they asked me to do that, and just got a really good opportunity, interviewed for it, and started there in February 2018, and was there for almost 7 years, including the last year and a half with Liberty Mutual. But just had a really good opportunity to meet a lot of great people, made a ton of connections. Arkansas has a great spot in my place, have a lot of connections through there, and all of that. So it was a good way for me to network and connect and just give back, because it was something that program really instilled in me, that I believed in wholeheartedly, that I wanted to see the success of other folks kind of take that journey as because we're working with newer producers with that. So it was just a really good thing. I've always been loved to coach, always been in sports, always competitive. So I saw that
Yeah.
kind of same mindset that I could portray to other people, and people understand and relate to me, I feel like, pretty well.
Mhm.
So I was able to kind of get them, know them on a personal level, but then understand, professionally, hey, what can we do to kind of take your next step to the next level and do all of that. So within Pacesetter.
Yeah, I wonder, for you being a younger guy at that time, even now, because most of the time you think about these coaches, it's Diane Masterson who's, got a little bit longer career there, and someone else. Was that a challenge for you at all going into that, being just a little bit older than some of these people you were coaching, or a little bit more experienced, but not this 25, 30-year career that like Diane had?
Yeah, I think it worked in both ways. I think once I was able to build the credibility of what I could do and help them with, and really understand and kind of learn my backstory, and obviously with Diane, and at that point Ken Fields was talking
Yeah.
too, and just the credibility of what I had brought to the team, and was able to be one of the top in my class. And I just understood the business. I felt like that was a big key piece of how I could get these people to learn and grow and trust me, by me understanding, what they're going through, like the day-to-day of cold calling. Just no one wants to cold call their entire career, but early on, it's a necessary thing that they need to do, and all of that type of stuff. So I think it worked in both ways. I think younger, because I was hungry, I was ready to go.
Yep.
Like, I'm always amped up, and what's the next piece of business, all of that stuff. And some of those tough conversations that people had was like, hey, they were on high on the moon of everything. It was like, hey, I just closed my biggest account. It was like, hey, that's great. But what's next, right? And
Yeah.
just having
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
mindset, and having them to truly understand that. So, but also I had to build that trust with agency principals and agency owners. I feel like that was more or less like me dealing with me being younger, in that type of a role, in that type of position, as well too. But we were able to grow that personal lines and small commercial program to have more participants, write more business than they ever
Yep.
had. And then the state auto and Liberty news came, and it was like, hey, congratulations, you just had your largest class you've ever had, the most business ever been written, most people that ever qualified for a cruise, and by the way, we're not writing personal lines anymore. So they kind of made that transition, and that's when I really kind of focused on, I was, still with the Pacesetter program, but on the Liberty side, more transitioning into that commercial coach. And,
Sure.
we had some changes within the team that needed to kind of take on some more responsibility. So that's when I really grew, which I actually had more experience on the commercial side than I did the personal line side, but led that program, and did well with that. But that led to, with Liberty over the last year and a half, just more opportunity to write some larger things,
Yeah.
because they played in spaces that state auto typically didn't write in, or didn't do that. So even with working with agents, like, I was so involved, even I'm not physically doing the presenting, but we'll role play and do things like that.
Yeah.
So but I was just as amped up of like, hey, let's get this piece of business, what's doing that. And so it just gave me kind of a clear indication of being able the opportunity to work on that, because the agency that I came from, they would write some decent sized stuff, but they also, like, there was a limit because they could only handle so much, which every agency has their own little landscape of what they want to focus on, what they want to do, and their niches and things like that. So it was cool to kind of see that transition. And that's really kind of what led me to where I'm even at now today is, I'm working for probably one of the largest family-owned agencies in the Cleveland area. That's what I loved about it. It was so family-owned, as
Yeah.
well as, they work on some large stuff, whether it's municipalities or things like that, large manufacturers, metal fabrication, all of those things, big contractors, things like that too. But it's in a different realm of what I'm doing. But now I'm kind of playing quarterback with helping with between sales and service and managing that aspect of it, managing the accounts and taking on a book of business, building that, all of that type of stuff. But it is a little different role too, because I'm not having a cold call and things like that too, which is nice. But it's been a great transition so far. But Pacesetter program is
But
um, it was a
that's gotta be
ton.
something. That's gotta
Yeah.
be something for you though. Being coming up in that cold call and like being in that environment and that hunger and that fight, like getting out there in that dog fight every day and that cold call and drop ins, the whole thing. And now you're not
Mhm.
in that. Is that something that you still itch to get out and want to do?
So what's ironic about that is I'm still very involved in most of the sales here at this
Yeah.
agency. So I like right now we're in the process of marketing a municipality. I was out on presentations, do pre
Okay. Yeah.
renewals, things like that. So like I still get that itch, but I don't have to actively go after that anymore. But I'm still very involved in the presentation, all of that type of stuff, and building that relationships. I mean, we all know that this is a business of building relationships, and this agency truly focuses on that. That's what Pacesetter preached as well too. So
Yeah.
it's been a good transition
Yeah.
with that too. But yeah, it was. Everyone always asked me, it's like, hey, you went to the carrier side, you went to the company side. Like, do you ever just want to get out and sell again? And at that point, I hadn't. But now it's good. It's been a good opportunity and good
Yeah.
momentum for me to kind of make that switch, and it's been really good.
Yeah, when I went through again, I was in my mid 30s. And so I was the old guy at that time of my class going through with all these younger guys. But I had that advantage of having those years of cold calling and those years of drop ins. And I came up a second generation watching my dad. That's all he did was drop ins and cold calls. And
Hmm.
he would wake up every day and I'm going to do 20 drop ins today. I'm not going to stop till I hit at least 3 yeses and get 2 appointments. And the whole thing was already set for me, that foundation. And then when I got into Pacesetters, just taking that to a whole nother level for me, it was really cool for me. And having, like you said, that competition mindset and that
Hmm.
accountability of having Diane, kick my ass every single call. And like, as sweet as she looks and as sweet as she can be, like, she can ride your ass in a way of like, you don't want to disappoint Diane. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
And so
That's right.
I had that advantage, but I also had that challenge of working with her and competing and going through some of that. And some of the things that she and I talked about, and some of those, there'd be days we'd be laughing and there'd be days we'd be crying. Some days we'd be celebrating. Some days we'd be, kicking ourselves. And it's like, to your point, I could see what you're talking about because I felt like Diane was in the trenches with me. She was out there. I felt like she felt every loss. She felt every
Hmm.
win. You multiply it over hundreds and hundreds of students. That's got to be a cool feeling, though.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a cool feeling. I mean, everyone always asks like, hey, what motivates you about what you do and what your position? And when I was with Pacesetter, there was nothing that I could do that could motivate me. Yeah, at certain levels, but like the agents that I worked with, that was the true motivation to see their wins, to see their progress, to see
Yeah.
their growth in just like a year time frame that we worked together. That's what it was all about. I mean, that's what really made me feel successful and things like that when you could see their successes.
Yeah. And then for, carrying on for you early on, 2015, 16, 17, before you got into working there, being a part of that alumni program, which I did the same thing, having that continued coaching, that continued accountability. Talk to the audience a little bit, whether they're an agency owner listening or a new producer or someone experienced in that. How important is that accountability and how important is that coaching that you were able to get, that I was able to get, that they can get right now if they're not right now already?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that we always said was, agency owners wear so many different hats that
Yeah.
they really can't truly take on that accountability piece to really give these producers what they need. And the different generations are even more different, right? The newer generations, they might need a little bit more feedback of, hey, you're doing a great job with this, or this is what I would change, all of that type of stuff. So that accountability, and that's what really differentiated Pacesetter over any other program in the industry. It was a weekly accountability. Plus, we had sales meetings weekly with them, all of that type of stuff. Plus, they had their camaraderie of the group that they worked with, as well too. I mean, we always joke, like, obviously we knew each other from Pacesetter, and this has been 8 years since we saw each other, through the Pacesetter program or on a cruise or whatever else like that, and we still stay connected. We're still in the industry, all of that
Yeah.
type of stuff. So I think the biggest thing with that is just the accountability piece is just so key, and the consistency.
Yep.
I think that's what they're, we always talked about that two words in Pacesetter is consistency and persistency. And I think those two
100%.
things definitely are what sets that program apart. And that's what agency owners, that's why we had repeat customers, because they're like, hey, you
Yep.
take this burden off of me. Like, I don't have to do that. But they
Yeah.
know how critical year one is. If they don't make it in that year one, they're probably not going to be in the business long term.
100%. Yeah, and that's the thing that, I think it's such a simple thing of just holding them accountable and having someone to say, what are you doing today? What do you got going on today? What's going on this week? Tell me about your wins. Tell me about your losses.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of agency managers or agency principals, agency owners, whatever it might be, you know, try to overcomplicate it, kind of like people do with your last name. But it's like they try to it's like I can't, I don't have time to, I don't have it does take the time, but it's not a difficult thing. It just, what are you doing? And a simple, you know, I mean, you could use CRM tools to go, but a simple spreadsheet could even help you with, okay, who'd you see today? Who'd you follow up on? How'd it go? Things like that. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, organization, right? Just being
Yep.
there to help them
Yes.
just stay organized, and there's systems that can help you too, but ultimately it's still on that producer for sure.
Yep. 100%. And so, I was thinking, you know, just to name drop a little bit, because I'm wondering if you went through this a little bit, like, because we went through around the same time, but I think a few years ahead of me was Seth Zaremba, a guy named Ryan Evans. Did you go through
Yeah.
with them or around
So
that?
so ironically, so Ryan Evans and I still talk. I actually just
That's
talked to
my
him a couple
guy.
weeks ago. Yeah, Ryan, he's my Arkansas connection. I have a lot of Arkansas connections, and
Yeah.
he's doing
I was at
great and
his
was
ribbon
able to
cutting
be.
the other day in his open house for his new
Yeah,
building.
yeah, for his new
Yeah.
building. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we literally just talked about that. So Ryan, when I first came to State Auto, he was a part of the alumni program. So we worked together for several years, and he was one of my producers that I worked with, and we just stayed connected. I mean, even through, all the things that he had going on personally with his family and things like
Oh
that,
gosh,
as well
yes.
as, professionally making this transition of finally
Yeah.
stepping out and starting his own agency, and he's done a great job with that too. But yeah, Ryan Evans. And then also, so ironically, who you work with, Sid Rowe. So Sid and
Yes.
Seth Zaremba, I believe it was in 2018, came and spoke to a Pacesetter class
Oh, that's
together,
awesome.
talking about data and like analytics
Yep.
and how to use that and all that type of stuff. So Seth is still a huge supporter of the Pacesetter program. He actually is in the Cleveland area where I
Yep.
live. He still I think he may have sold his agency or whatever else, or is still kind of manages. I don't really know, but I know he's got his neon thing and all of that stuff too, which is really, really cool to kind of see where that's been built and all of that. But yeah, it worked with them both and know them both very well.
What I find interesting is, and the reason I name drop, not because of any other thing, like they've all been on my podcast before, so it's no, I mean, but and everyone knows like Sid Rose, one of my best friends in the world, and like a sister to me. But Seth, people like you, Seth, like Ryan, like Sid, like myself, like some of the people that I know that went through, they have that hard hat mentality. They have that
Hmm.
get your lunchbox, go to work every day kind of mentality. And I think no matter, again, I've said this for 5 years on this podcast, no matter what technology, no matter what, comes through, no matter how, far along we get into things, that relationship, that hard hat mentality, that blue collar, get out and get it done mentality is still, the key to making it in this industry, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's good to just be able to have those connections too, as well as like, hey, you're having a bad day. It's like, hey, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? Let me just bounce some
Yeah.
ideas off you there too. And I love it when I get calls like that where people just reach out and like, hey, you got like 2 minutes. I know we don't work together anymore. And that was the biggest thing,
Yeah.
like, especially when I was still even a part of the Pacesetter program, I would get calls randomly or in emails like, hey, just closed the largest account I've ever closed. Like, that was,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna have a great week because of that,
a
and
hundred
then that was
percent.
years after the fact too, but just people staying connected and all of that. But yeah, just that hard hat mentality. And it's good to see a lot of folks that, kind of started maybe around that same time frame are still uh, turning
Lock it
and
in, so to speak.
yeah, grinding, right? Yeah, locking in. Exactly. So
It's crazy.
but
And so, as we, transition a little bit, from first of all, from the Pacesetters, thing, like for you, what was some, like, if you're talking to, put your coach hat back on for me. It hadn't been that long you've been out of that, but putting your coach pack hat back on and you're talking to whether it's agency owners or these green producers coming up, or even the 10-year veterans like myself when I went through, well, what kind of advice could you tell them? Now we've been like 4 years, I say, into a hard market. We're probably going to go into another year of a hard market. Things aren't the same as they've been back when we were coming through 16, 17, 18, 15, whatever it might be. Talk to my audience a little bit about some advice you could give them right now.
yeah, I think, this is all in cycles, right? So it's just, you'll see, and it's amazing to me how I've seen it just since 2012, where it's like, hey, it's a really hard market, then it's, that's really good. Like every business wants to write everything. We don't care, like just in it just straight through processing, all that type of stuff. And then it kind of changed and doing that. But I think the biggest thing is, um, there's a book that's out there that has the analogy in there. You are the problem, but you're also the solution. Just because everybody's dealing with a hard market. It's the people that don't make the excuses, that just continue to get up every single day and grind, make those calls, make those connections. And what's weird to me too is, number one, obviously you've never burn a bridge on things. A no for now doesn't mean a no forever. It means a no, maybe at a later date. Things change all the time. Businesses are being sold, agencies are being acquired, all of those relationships. There's something that drives different wedge in there. So if you could just be consistent and stay on top of, hey, if you say you're going to follow up with somebody, just do it. Because half of these people in this industry don't even just follow up on things, or numerous times where it's like, hey, I didn't write this business till year four. What's amazing to me too is now that I've kind of made this transition, I don't have to actively go after things. I'm kind of the quarterback, like I said before, and managing all the processes and what comes in like that. But I've had numerous that the companies that have reached out because they see that I'm kind of back on this side again. And it was probably some of the largest things that I probably was like a little hesitant to even get involved in. And now that's like just a normal thing. And the more that you're in this, the more people will trust you. But that first couple years is where you got to just continue to grind and focus on what you're doing, because that's what happens is people will trust me. I still remember to this day when I was in Pacesetter, I called on, this was specifically a church that I called on, could not get anywhere with this, folks. And it was probably a larger church in the Cleveland area, couldn't get anywhere at all. I mean, just randomly, like 3 weeks ago, it was like, hey, can you take a look at this? And I didn't cold call or nothing, but it's just people understanding that I didn't burn a bridge. A no for now, probably 8 years ago means, hey, it's an opportunity now, or things like that. Or maybe I could have referred somebody if I wasn't in this role and things like that too. So it's amazing to me that the longer you're in this, the more that people will trust you and the more opportunities that you give. But the harder you work, I mean, you can't teach hard work to anyone. And I'm not saying that I'm the hardest worker out there, but I know a lot of people that work really, really hard and they have great success. Good luck usually follows hard work.
Yep.
Um, so.
Yeah, I think when my son was either 7 or 8, 9, coming up, really wants to play ball and still chasing his dream of playing college and pro ball someday as a 16-year-old kid now. But I bought him, he was a big Kevin Durant fan when he was a kid. And there was a poster. I think it's, hard work pays off when, is it hard work pays off when, oh shit, now I just forgot the saying. But anyhow, it was a whole thing about working hard instead of relying on, just skill and luck. And now I have to look it up. But anyhow, he had this poster in his room for years. He just took it down like a year ago because he was like, Dad, I'm 16 now. I don't want this Kevin Durant poster in my room anymore. But um, it was one of those things of teaching him that at a young age. And at that time, I was just coming out of the pace. I was, still selling, still getting into that. And you're right, having that advice of, just get out there and work hard and do that. And you brought up another thing about, the follow up and about, a lot of agents out there won't follow up. What that's the biggest thing, the biggest lesson that Diane taught me that I'll never forget was that whole formula they had for the follow up. And, after you reach out this many times, you have this higher percentage, and this many times, this higher percentage. Can you talk to me of that a little bit and what kind of what you were talking to your producers about with that?
Yeah, so the consistent follow-up, we would have different things that we talk about. Obviously it'd start with maybe just a networking event that you first met them with. That was that first contact, and then maybe a follow-up email, and then maybe you would actually get their X date or the expiration of when the policy is about to expire. You go, and then there's a gradual thing. Sometimes we try and push the process too much. Now we want to focus on like, hey, I want them to kind of play by my rules and my game and all that stuff, which is fine. But we don't want to sound too desperate. Most people only want to deal with their insurance one time a year, and that's when their
Yeah.
policy expires. So we can't look like we're so desperate. That's one of the issues that people are like, oh, let me sell it now. Let me sell it now. Or like, you know, having people understand the qualifying a buyer. Like just because we both know each other and you write a business that pays a lot of premium doesn't mean that necessarily I want to write you, because you may not be the best fit for me as a producer or as our agency and what we look for. So understanding that mindset as well too. So those follow-ups, all of those are the different follow-ups that you just mentioned. So it may be 10 contacts, right? Or if I'm out in the area and I'm prospecting and I'm looking for other businesses to write, I may see, oh, I'm going to see Heath. I'm going to stop in and see you and drop in. And what we're going to talk about, we're probably going to talk about our kids. We're probably going to talk about
Yeah.
the football game that our team lost last weekend or whatever else like that we want to talk about. But all I'm doing is in those contexts just continue to build the relationships. That's all it does.
Yeah.
But I know at that point, if I truly build that relationship, do those follow-ups, qualify you as a prospect, I should know whether or not I'm going to sell your business. And if I'm not, then that's fine. I walk away. Walk away is key. You talk about follow-ups, but also walk away from business. You will not be successful if you continue to work on every single piece of business. You're going to have to walk away from some things,
Yeah.
and you
100%.
figure out what those terms are of why you would want to walk away an account. I think that's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else, because you don't get paid to quote, you get paid to sell. So if you're quoting stuff and you become a quoting machine and do all this and that and what the client wants, and yeah, you want to do that, but also you got to make sure it's going to be a good fit for you, and you got to get some buy-in. Make them want to, show them your value, make them show
Yeah.
you why they want to do business with you.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so embarrassed now that I figured out though, it was hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. And
Yeah.
so, and it was, I just looked up the poster because I couldn't remember, but yeah, going back to that, I remember, there was a guy that, he lived down the street from me in Arkansas that, and he would walk his dog past my house every single day. And we would sit and talk and, visit or whatever the driveway. Never knew him a whole lot until, I finally figured out his name after a while and got to know him. And I found out he was the HR director at this large manufacturing company, like huge. And I remember going through with the Pacesetters and I was like, oh, this could be a shoe in. I'm going to win with this account. This is like $1 million account. And I was telling him what I was doing. And I was like, I'm just going to drop them and just be real transparent. Like, I'm in this program. It's a competition. You let me get a chance to write this account. I will win this sucker, and I'll get to go on this cruise and do the thing where neighbors help me out. He's like, yeah, man, come by, do it, whatever. Didn't get it, obviously, I would have definitely won, but, I still got the cruise, did the thing, but this would have been like huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, next year, same thing. We were 5 people, small agency. And, again, years later, finally I got the opportunity. We came in with a good, quote, and ENS. We had an ENS this and breakout this and go to, State Auto for this and some other company for that, and finally landed it. And so many times I felt like I remember going inside and be like, oh, I had to talk to Jim again at the mailbox for 30 minutes. But one of these days, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to land that account, and the commission on that account alone is going to set me up, But it was that follow up that I would have never,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have done it, but not to the point where Diana taught me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Most people won't follow up for 5 or 6 months, let alone 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. But
Right.
I
But
was not
you
letting
but
it
you
go.
see that, right? I mean, that's obviously brought you success for
Yeah.
sure.
Like you said, every time I was in the area, I mean, I'd be 5 miles away and I'd go out of my way to make sure, okay, I'm going to go stop by this guy. Hey, I was just in the area. And
Mm-hmm.
after a while, he started to figure it out. I was like, you weren't really. I was like, no, I was like 10 miles that way. But I'm going to make sure
Yeah.
one of these days I'm going to write your account. And I'm going to be the best damn agent you've ever had. I'm going to take care of you, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd probably still have this account to this day had I not, gotten out of the agency world again. But it was just one of those things. But again, that follow up and that, whole grind mentality that, Pacesetters taught me really was what helped me land a massive account that I never would have landed otherwise, probably. And I'm sure the agency still has it, but just one of those things that so proud of that I learned. So transitioning from Pacesetters back into the agency world a couple of months back. First of all, what, if you don't mind, I don't know how much you can get into that, but what kind of made you decide to go this route and leave that pacer world that you loved so much? And I could see it in your post back a couple
Mhm.
months ago. You were still like, deeply, passionate about Pacesetters. You still are to this day, I could tell. But what
Yeah.
made you decide to make that difficult jump?
Yeah, so I guess a couple things. Obviously there was with a transition as always comes change. So
Sure.
there was just some changes that were going well, or that were going on and all of that type of stuff. So plus I was looking to eventually try and get back on more of a leadership role within an
Yeah.
agency. I just didn't know what that time frame looked like. It could have been another 10 years from now. I don't know. But I just got presented with a really, really good opportunity. I know a guy that works at this agency more on the benefits side, and he was like, "Hey, you really need to come talk to our folks here. I think it would be a good transition for you." And it just really was. And I've always had that leadership mentality, wanting to try and do that, and I felt like this was a good next transition step for that. I felt like at least on the carrier side, usually if you want to promote and go more, that's usually more travel. So I have young kids at home, and we're in the midst of sports and everything else like that, and have some things going on with my dad and kind of taking care of him as well too. So it gave me the opportunity to stay locally, where I don't have to travel, just some local travel, and all of that type of stuff. So, and like I said, it's just an opportunity. I kind of got my feet wet a little bit with some bigger opportunities that Liberty would write over this last year and a half. And this is really what all this agency focuses on, is some larger accounts. So it was just a really good transition to give me the opportunity to work on stuff that maybe I really even had a chance, or even newer agents that I've worked with in the past had a chance to do, whether it's a large trucking account, or we write a lot of municipalities here at this agency and things like that too. So it was just a good opportunity. Like everything kind of aligned, the transition, the time frame, all of that type of stuff. um, as well as, I have the utmost respect for the Pacesetter program, the team that's leading that program, the folks that still work with that program as well. And I felt that it was in a really, really good spot, to be able to finally make that transition, because it's like a baby, right? I mean, I invested
Yeah.
7 years of my life doing that, and all of that
Yep.
type of stuff. And, we had some rockiness of like, hey, what's going to happen even with this program when the transition happened? But I can tell you for sure, Liberty is all hands in, all in on expanding that program. They only had it up until where it only operated in certain states that state auto wrote business. The long-term goal is to get it in every single region, more agents, all of that type of stuff, and open up to
Yeah.
all Liberty agencies. So I knew that there was a growth plan there. I believed in the leader that was handling it at that point. So I just felt like it was a good transition time for me. And then, this opportunity kind of presented itself. I wasn't looking for it. It kind of just kind of fell into my lap. And so all of that.
So what does the role entail? I know you're not day to day producing, but you are managing producers, or you're managing the marketing process, or all the above.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Not really managing the producers, managing the marketing process, the sales process, service, client follow-up, the relationships. How do we build the book of business through referrals? We have a lot of accounts already. How can we formulate a plan to really kind of make more business and get people to start working for us when they don't realize it,
Yeah.
through referrals and things like that too? And this agency has a lot of great processes of what they do, how they market account. We have a good name within the community, all of that type of stuff. um, and so it's just been a really, really good opportunity with all of that. So sky's the limit. Like, hey, you take it and let's see what you can do, and all of that type of stuff.
It
So it's
sounds like
been
a
good.
perfect fit for your background and for what
Yeah,
you
a little
do.
bit of both. It gets me back in the sales part field, as well as still like some management part of it too. So it's been a
Very,
really,
very
really good
cool.
transition. Yeah.
Uh, very, very cool. And so, what in that role of managing those processes and those things like that, is there some things that you feel like you a that were already there that you're learning from, and b that you're bringing to the table that may be a little different that you might be able to share, not the secret sauce, but a little bit with the audience of like, what kind of things you guys are thinking about as you're trying to grow that revenue.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just more opportunities, to work on, as well as if you think about succession plans too. I think that
Yeah.
I'm a part of their succession plan with what the agency currently has in place.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely, I'm still as hungry as I was when I first started selling. So I'm always like, hey, where's the next business coming from? All of that. So the new business growth, and that's what people incentivize on, because that's how you continue to take the agencies to the next level. And trying to figure out what are some maybe niches that this agency can also focus on a little bit more, as well too, and what's a different field that we can look at, because I've always, whether it's through Pacesetter or when I sold before, is I've always been kind of a generalist. There hasn't really been a certain niche that I focused on,
Yeah.
and things like that, and maybe a little bit here and there, but not truly focus on it. But what are some things that we can do as an agency to really focus on that? And then, what do our carriers want to write? Everybody wants to write a contractor, but like, what's something unique? How can we be unique into this market, and be the go-to for whatever it is? That's what we want to do, and simplify it. And what are some things that we can use with data? Is there some AI stuff that we can use?
Yeah.
Even some stuff like that. We're trying to take a look at some of the things that we can even use for AI. I started to use a little bit of that towards when I was with Pacesetter, of just using AI to summarize meetings and things like that, talking points. Who talked the most in the meeting? Was that okay? Things like that. And I think there's some processes and things like that of summarizing even some. I mean, I used one the other day. The AI that we use is Copilot,
Yeah.
even through Microsoft, and it was like we had some rec letters that we BOR'd an account just recently in October, and it was like, hey, cool, but by the way, like, we're probably about to get off it, which we weren't known to that, and we found it all out, but was able to kind of go out, educate the client. They actually had done some of the rec stuff that, but
Oh,
never
cool.
told the old agent and things like that. So I used AI to basically give me a whole start of how to respond to those rec letters, and then just added
That's
my little bit of
fantastic.
information. So it just takes, what are some things that we
Yeah.
can do? Because everybody always needs more people, right? With
Yeah.
usually most agencies that you're at, but what are some things that we can make these processes easier? Little things like that. Our monthly meetings that we have, a little synopsis of, hey, this is what we talked about. These are the plan of action moving forward. And it's all captured through AI and things like that too. So there's some different ways that we can use that. The data, how many times did it take us? How many years did we quote this and we still didn't get it? Is it still really worth
Right.
pursuing? Or how many years have we not, we contacted them 3 years ago and we haven't contacted them since? What are some things that we can pull through our management system to be able to do some of that as well too? So, yeah, a lot of that, just kind of taking a look at that, and hopefully just fresh eyes. That's all I'm wanting.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that I wrote down that you brought up that I thought were interesting. Number one, or I shouldn't say interesting, but I think are key. One, it's easy to continue to do the same things that have always worked. Being a pace setters, and again, it will always work. But that the grind and the cold calling and the drop ins and the visits and all of those work. But to be able to couple that, the process with some of the new stuff, whether it's AI driven or data driven and some of that kind of stuff, you know, I think there's a lot of agency owners out there that are listening. And again, I don't mind stepping on toes a little bit, but you've got to evolve. You've got to continue to grow with the industry. And I think it's neat that, again, you're nowhere near where, the pale mail and stale and some of the things that we talk about in this industry, but it's easy to see how they got there and how our industry has always stayed in the same hamster wheel, sometimes, for so to speak, because it's easy to do. That's comfortable. But for
Mhm.
you, you're like, I got to continue to evolve. Am I right on that? Is that some
Yeah, yeah,
intentionality?
exactly. It continue to evolve, or else you're going to be set back, or you're going to be
Yep.
like every other agent. And our goal is not to be like every other agent, every other agency. And you don't have to be an absolute professional, even if we're using the AI space. You don't have to be a professional. There's just certain things that you
Yep.
can do that's going to help your agency, and whatever that is, that's up to you to determine, and how much you really want to invest in and really build out and doing some of that too. Because there's some processes, some email things that you can do where it automates through AI and things like that too. Is it going to be the best Is they're going to make mistakes 100%. Humans make
Sure.
mistakes too. But what we can do, is there some things that you can do to just take some of the burden off your team? That's really what you want. That's really what you want to focus on.
100%. The other thing is, and I'm seeing this a lot as I consult with some agencies and still coach with some people now, with this market that we're in. And again, I talk about whether it's a hard market or a soft market, there's always challenges with any market you go through, whether it's, gutting the bottom dollar price to try to sell and you're going through that soft market thing. That's its own challenges you and I came up in. And then, or it's a hard market, where things are a little more challenging on the front end, but, on the back end, on the renewal side, it's a little bit better because your revenue is growing just naturally with increase in pricing. So I've seen some agencies that are saying, if we can just hang on to the book we got, we're going to grow about 15, 20%. But that's not true growth. So for you to say you're still focusing on, even in a hard market, even in a growing agency, you're still looking at, we got to get new business in the door. We got to stay hungry. We've got to build processes. We got to look at niches to get in. That's got to be another intentional thing instead of just focusing on the back door. Because now if you keep the back door closed, you're growing that way, but then you get organic growth on this other side. Sky's the limit, bro.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to realize too, like, hey, you're getting a little bit of 10 to 15% growth, and that's gravy right now. But eventually, like, it's going to work its way down. It's all in cycles. Eventually, maybe carriers don't take as much rate. I mean, we're actually starting to see a couple flat renewals. Like, that's been like curse words to most people when you talk about
100%.
insurance. So you're starting to see a little bit of that. And actually, it was getting, from what we heard from even like reinsurers before the last two hurricanes, like they were actually starting to finally feel a little bit of relief and things like that too. So who knows? But yeah, sky's the limit. Eventually, I mean, plus businesses sell, businesses go out
Yes.
of business, all of that type of stuff. So like, I don't want to not be able to sleep at night because I'm afraid to lose one specific account. But if I always have that mindset, it's like, what's next? What's new? What can I write next? I don't have to worry about that.
You're right. So I think that's good, advice for people to hear. They're listening right now is, I think it's a good idea to focus always to keep your renewals, but at the same time, you can't, close the door on new business. I think you've got to keep that door open for new business and keep the back door closed on renewals always, no matter what the cycle is, no matter if you're in a hard market or a soft market. But, and then, I could really dive into a whole nother 30 minutes into niches, but, I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. And I think, the other thing, I'll wrap up with, again, going back to this hard hat mentality, that's got to help you being in Cleveland. Am I right?
For sure. Oh yeah.
Cleveland's got that hard hat. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's the hard hat blue collar town of all towns. People
Yeah.
say Pittsburgh and some of these other, but Cleveland's like, I feel like you bring your lunch pail to work no matter what industry you're in there.
That's right. That's right.
And do you see that, in the people you call on and the producers that you have and whatnot, that mentality, or is that just like a thing that we hear about in Arkansas or we hear about in California that
No,
Cleveland's that blue
I would
collar
agree with
town?
that statement. I feel like that's a very accurate statement of Cleveland and hard hat mentality. Go to work, people working as hard as they possibly can, different industries that are here, all of that type of stuff. So, Cleveland gets a bad rap sometimes. Don't hold us to our sports teams. I know that's always a bad rap, but realistically though, it is a hard work city and striving to continue to get better and all of that too.
Yeah, even through all that, you still gave us, one of the top 5 NBA players of all time. So from Akron there. So
That's right. That's right.
but anyhow, man, I appreciate you hanging out with me and us getting to catch up a little bit. We need to do a little bit more catching up offline sometime soon. I'd love to continue to keep up with what you've got going on. Thank you for blessing the audience with your time. It means a lot to me, man.
Oh man, thank you so much. A great opportunity, and hopefully we can do this again. This was fun.
Yeah, dude, we definitely need to.
All right, man. We'll talk to you. We need to get a like Pacesetter reunion here.
We should.
Even if it's just the Arkansas folks and all of that. Let's do it. We need to plan
Yeah,
it.
I've got some of those names I need to get with you before I get off here, but I'll holler at you.
All right.